Okay, everybody. We are here with Hannah Valentine, who is from our parish, St. Raphael of Brooklyn. And we have a local missionary who is doing international mission work in Albania with the Orthodox Christian Mission Center. So some of you don't know her. So I'm going to allow her to talk a little bit about herself and how she ended up wanting to be a missionary and becoming a missionary in Albania and about her work there in Albania. And I've mentioned before, missionaries go on furlough from the mission field and go around and tell people about their work. And an important part of that is knowing what the Orthodox Church is doing here in the 21st century to continue that apostolic mission in other countries, but also it is about raising money. So I want everyone to be generous. If you're seeing this in our newsletter, we should have a little link there that a button you can click to contribute to the Orthodox Christian Mission Center and to Hannah and to our missionaries who are doing work really on our behalf internationally. So take it away, Hannah. Tell us what you want us to know.
Okay, thank you, Father. Thanks for this opportunity to be able to share with people at St. Raphael uh, what is going on in Albania and how I got involved there. So, like Father mentioned, most of my older childhood, we were uh, here in Iowa, at Iowa City. Um, my sister Lizzie is still part of the church at St. Raphael, so big reason for me to come back and to visit often. Um, Orthodoxy has always been something that was just kind of part of our formation. My family, when we were growing up, we were homeschooled for our kind of first earlier years of elementary school. And it was from kind of those first years that I really started thinking about what a missionary was and even thinking about maybe that I wanted to do it someday. Um, if you are familiar with the stories of Saint Herman and Saint Innocent of Alaska, they my mom would tell us their stories when we were kids, and they just really inspired me. I was fascinated with these men who came over from Russia to the quote unquote new land at that time to minister both to the Russian settlers in Alaska and to the Alaskan natives. And just all the heartfelt work that they put into it, learning new languages, um, just being with people that had a completely different culture, all the difficulties they had to go through, even with their travel. So in my mind, when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, I thought being a missionary was getting into a kayak and going across the ocean, like St. Innocent. And I don't do that now. But it was kind of this early image I had. Like being a missionary is like being St. Innocent. So it was always something in my mind from when I was a child. And then back in 2022, I started looking into long-term missionary work with OCMC, which is our Orthodox Christian Mission Center, here under all the canonical Orthodox bishops in North America. And at first, I thought I was going to be going to Kenya. That was kind of my thought and plan. But then I was redirected to Albania because we had other long-term missionaries there in Albania. And so, as a first-time long-term missionary, that made a lot more sense for me to go somewhere where there was already kind of a community of missionaries for their support and for their guidance, so I could be mentored under them. And at that point, I was like, okay, cool, but where's Albania? And I just had to kind of start learning about where it even was on the map, what the people were like, what they had been through. They have very interesting and unique history, as does much of that area in the Balkans. I'll show a map of where it is in a minute. Um, and they have a very unique language, so language learning has been a whole part of that. But yeah, so I've been there since December of 2023. And after this summer, I will be returning at the end of September. Um, to continue for another 2-year term. So I'll be there at least through the end of 2028. And then after that, we will see. I'm just waiting and praying to see what God shows for more long term after that. Um, so I'll just go ahead and share with you all a couple of pictures. I'll try to keep this actual slideshow pretty quick, but it's just mostly photos showing kind of the main activities or areas in which I'm involved in the ministry in Albania, specifically in the capital city of Tirana, where I live. Um, and then show you a little bit about what it's going to look like for me going into my third term, these next 2 years, and what I'll need for that to be possible. So I put together these pictures and kind of found this a small verse from First Thessalonians to kind of use as a theme to tie things together, and that is build each other up. This idea that at the heart of our Christian faith is really our relationships with one another, our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with God. And so, this idea that at the end of the day, what really matters, what really is going to remain of what I do is how I treat other people, whether or not I am seeking ways of pouring into them, serving them, helping them, and trying to build them up. Um, so a word that I've been thinking about a lot this past year, especially, has been the word purpose. And recently I've been thinking about what it means to sustain a sense of purpose, even when you're not necessarily emotionally tied to this purpose. I think sometimes we are very, very keen on what our purpose is. We really feel it on a heart level. We're aware of it. It's kind of what's driving us. And then sometimes there can be dry spells where we know we have a purpose, where we're just not quite um, as connected with it as we wish we were. And so this verse from the Gospel of Matthew is something I think that kind of helps ground us as Christians back to what our purpose is at the end of the day. Um, when Jesus comes back at the second coming as the King, he will answer those on his right hand. Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. And so, again, it's about relationship. It's about how I grew in love, how I treated my neighbor, how I sought to serve him. So, as Christians, we don't have to like make up a sense of purpose for ourselves. The way our purpose lives out in our daily lives is unique and different for each one of us as individuals. But as a Christian, my purpose is to love my neighbor and to love God and to continue to grow in that. It should be a lifelong growth. So that's what we're hoping to do. Really, at the heart of what we're doing in the church in Albania is serving one another and loving one another. So there's a map of Albania, just so that everyone can have an image in their heads of where it is we're talking about. So we are just north of Greece in the Balkans, across the Adriatic Sea from Italy. You can fit 6 Albanias in the state of Wisconsin. I'm not sure about the state of Iowa, but it's a very small country.
Hmm.
And I'm living right in the center, in the capital of Tirana. So the total population of Albania is slightly less than 3 million. So more Albanians live outside of Albania than they do currently live inside of Albania.
Hmm.
And as far as religious population, it's kind of difficult to find a consensus online of numbers. The Orthodox Church in Albania believes that about 20% of the population are Orthodox based on baptismal records and things like that. And around 50% of the population is Muslim. Um, and although this is the case, you ask people whether, if what they believe or what they are religiously, and they'll say, oh, I'm Orthodox or I'm Muslim. But we do have a very large population of people who are nominally religious. They kind of treat it as if, if my mom was a Christian, that means I'm a Christian, or if my dad was Muslim, that means I'm Muslim, whether or not they're practicing going to church, participating in the sacraments, or going to the mosque and for the prayers or celebrating the religious holidays. So there is a growing pressure of secularism there in Albania, as we see in many ways here in the States. So this offers a continued need for mission work, both within the Orthodox Church and reaching out to people who have not heard the gospel. Um, So one of the main ways that I've been involved in work in the church in Albania has been through catechism. So the two pictures on the left here are our classroom at the Church of Ungilizini in Tirana, which is the Church of the Annunciation. So I have a small Sunday school class of teens that I co-teach with one of the priest wives there. And these are just delightful kids. I absolutely love being with these teens. They're very they participate readily, even though they are such a small group. So that's been a real joy to continue to teach and pour into them, get to know them, build up relationships with them. And then during the school year, I've been helping with teaching Christian education classes at one of the elementary schools that the church oversees. And this is the Protagonist School there in Tirana. So this past year, I was teaching fourth, fifth, and then a combined sixth and seventh grade class for this Christian education. We meet once a week in each class, and the children have to have like parental signatures in order to be a part of these religious classes. So we do sometimes have Muslim children that participate in these classes, or maybe just kids who, again, are coming from a nominal Orthodox family. So it really provides a great opportunity to reach out to them with the gospel. Um, and then other things that I've been involved with has been writing for the children's magazine that the church publishes once a month called Gazohu, which just means rejoice. I help with writing catechism or Sunday school lesson plans for younger children and for older children. And then these are plans that we're hoping to offer to different churches in Albania just to have as curriculum. And then, especially during the summer, I help out with writing drama or skit scripts. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later on. That was something that has been really fun these last couple of years and a bit unexpected. So this is our combined sixth and seventh grade class there at the Protagonist School, meeting down in the cafeteria because we're a larger class. So we have more space down there. This past year, I was blessed to walk alongside three young women as they prepared for Holy Baptism to be received into the Orthodox Church. So these two girls, here in these photos, were both part of our Sunday school class in the Cathedral of the Resurrection of Christ in Tirana. So they have been attending catechism for a while and were both getting ready for baptism and were just baptized, I believe it was right around Christmas time
Mm.
this past year. So that was just a joy to be able to be a part of that journey with them. And then this young woman was just baptized this last Holy Saturday. She was influenced and inspired by the example of both her mother and her younger sister, who were baptized earlier last year. So another really important thing that we do in the church in Albania, especially the children's office or the catechism office, there is summer camps. So Archbishop Anastasios of blessed memory, our previous Archbishop of the church in Albania, considered camps to be the spiritual universities of the summer.
Mm.
So it's a really important way for us to pour into our children and even sometimes whole families. Um, I'm sure many of the children at St. Raphael have been able to experience Camp St. George or the Antiochian Village. And it's just a way of allowing the kids to live in an Orthodox environment for a time, to play and worship and grow relationships with one another, deep friendships, we hope. So that's something that we do every summer. The 3 weeks leading up to my returning back in the States here this summer were three back-to-back camps. So it was a very busy season, but it went really well. They were all wonderful camps thanks to the staff and the kids and everyone who made it possible. So the first week was day camps at both the Protagonist School in Tirana and then another one of the church's elementary schools in nearby city of Durrës called the Spirit of Love. We had the same program for these 2 day camps. We were focusing on the life of Patriarch Joseph from the Old Testament. Following that was the Home of Hope camp. So this is actually a short-term mission team opportunity that OCMC offered. And a few of these are offered each year. The Home of Hope Camp usually happens in June of each year. And this offers an opportunity for people from the United States to come to a place for a short-term mission trip, usually doing something as a team. So in this case, at the Home of Hope, it is a home for children in the village of Shenvlash or St. Blaise in Albania. Um, this home houses now 24 children who are all from dysfunctional or dangerous home situations. And so while most of them are not orphans in the strict sense of the word, they live at this home full time and then go to school in the city nearby. So we put on a week-long camp for them. I'm going to touch a little bit more on that camp in a minute because it really truly was an amazing experience. And then family camp was the last week before I came back to the States. So we had families from all over Albania come up on the shores of Lake Ohrid. Uh, if any of you are familiar with Saint Nikolai, I always say his last name wrong, Velimirovich.
Velimirovich, yes.
He was Velimirovich. He was up on the Montenegro, or
Hmm.
I think the Montenegro side of Lake Ohrid, in the city of Ohrid.
He
So you
was,
can actually
yeah.
see that city from where we were on the shores on the Albanian side.
Hmm.
And it just provides a great location for us to have family camp. We play together, we pray together, we do Bible study together for about 4 days. So this photo up here on top is from that family camp just this past year. And then just some other
Saint
photos
Nikolai.
of
I,
St.
I,
Nikolai. Yeah.
I'll mention that he was the rector of my seminary at one time, of St. Tikhon.
Yes. Yeah. He actually
So
spent some time in the States.
yeah, so there is that's one of those the Orthodox world is so small
Yeah.
in so many ways. I mean, there are these webs of connection, and it's just you know, it's fascinating to me, to look up like on a wall and see saints from Russia and Serbia and all over the place, and as well as, I mean, the Middle East, and see that they really do have this connection with the United States, that they've been here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we have like the spiritual heritage, right? It's not like the church in the United States is not separate from the church in other places.
Yeah.
We're all connected. Of course, we do things in different ways. We have our different cultures, our different languages, but it is one church. And so it's neat when those lines are kind of crossed, even with
Yeah.
our saints' lives. So these are all just more photos of camps over the years. We had residential camps more in the style of Camp St. George and Antiochian Village going on. Actually, I had already come back here in the States this year for them, so I wasn't participating in them this year. But last year I was able to be at the girls' residential camps because they separate boys and girls at the camps in Albania. Um, and then these are just two photos from this family camp on the shores of Lake
Mm.
Ohrid, just to give you an idea of what our view is from the hotel there. It's just a really, really beautiful location. So then just a little bit more about the Home of Hope team this past June. Um, this was my first time being one of the missionaries to help lead the team. So myself with Karen McDonald, who is another OCMC missionary in Albania with her husband Jeffrey. We on the Albanian side just helped kind of we chose the people that applied through OCMC who wanted to take part in this team from the States. And then we chose a theme for the camp and then worked with the director of the Home of Hope, priest wife Nestilda, to kind of plan and arrange this camp for the kids. So up on the top right here, we can see a picture of all the team members. We had 9 people that came over from the States and put together this camp that we all got to meet with His Holiness Archbishop Ioan of Albania here before the camp started. And then that's priest wife Nestilda there on the left of the picture. And then we put on a week-long camp for the kids at the home. They had arts and crafts, English, Bible study, sports, and the team members really all put together their lesson plans from the theme and topics that Karen and I gave them, kind of an overarching theme for the camp. They did an amazing job. They came prepared. They worked so well together. They were flexible when need to be. and they really bonded with the kids. And that was very evident in the fact that the kids were asking about them afterwards and,
Mm.
not wanting them to leave and everything. So that was just really touching to see that. We also invited some of the kids from the surrounding village to come and participate in the camp with the kids at the home during the week. So it was neat to get to meet some new kids in that way. And so then these are just a couple of the pictures of the kids both at work and at prayer together.
Something else about the lake is that Prayers by the Lake, the book
Yes, yeah,
by Saint Nikolai, is about references this lake. So, if
yes.
any, I highly recommend Saint Nikolai of Ohrid and Zicha, Prayers by the Lake, if you want to read about prayers that are by this lake we've been talking about.
Yeah, yeah, like prayer is connected to a place, which is
Yes.
which is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple of new things for myself, starting with this new year. I moved into a new apartment, and I have two new roommates. So I live still very close to where I originally lived. I'm within walking distance from my church, Unjalazimi, and from the school, the Protagonist School. So that's just been really wonderful. Tirana is a very walkable city. Um, I have a young Albanian roommate. Her name is Taya. She's a
Hmm.
first year university, well, now she's going to be a second year university student in pre-med. So her
Hmm.
university is just right down the street. So it's very a convenient location for her. She's been a great roommate. We've really enjoyed getting to know each other. And for myself, it's been a blessing because her family is very kind, very generous, very hospitable. So I've been able to get to know them through Taya, and kind of find like an adoptive family through
Hmm.
her, going over to their house for holidays and things like that. And then my very first cat, I did not grow up with cats. So this is Radagast the Brown down in the corner, named
Hmm.
after the Lord of the Rings character. Um, and he has been a great friend and made it back over to the States with me this summer. So he is living at my grandparents' apartment and getting used to his new surroundings.
I'd
So
like to
these are
see
just the
like.
last couple of pictures. I'm just going to close out with some of the strange and wonderful, some of the things that I did not anticipate would be part of my life, being working in the church there in Albania, but have just been real delights along the way. So I mentioned a little bit about how I help write drama or skit scripts on occasion, especially for like the summer camps. But this past Christmas, the teens at the Resurrection of Christ Cathedral in Tirana were going to put on a little drama or skit for the parents. We were having a big Christmas dinner for everyone. So the younger kids were going to perform something and the teens were going to do something. But many of you may know that teenagers are not always that eager to stand in front of their parents, showing their faces and speaking words. So we thought we would try something new where they could be sort of anonymous. We did a silent shadow play, kind of like a
Hmm.
shadow puppet play, but it was actually the kids dressing up, doing the motions, telling the story of Christ's Nativity. But they were behind a screen and we had music going on in the background, so they didn't have to say anything. And it went really well. It was really, really fun to do that. So I was helping with making some of the props for the drama. You can see the cardboard camel here on the left. And it was just funny to have to walk through Tirana for like a half an hour carrying these like props of camels and things for the play.
That is like the
And
greatest
then
way to
these
do a
are some of
public.
our teens at the cathedral duos. Um, we took the idea of superheroes and tied them into how saints are the superheroes of the church. So the teens at the cathedral put on these skits every day for the kids at the day camp last summer. And I had to try to come up with how to write skits in which Batman and Flash would meet up with St. Helen and St. Nectarius. So this was kind of a product of that trying to put the two together. So the teens did a really great job of putting that on for the kids. And then on the right is just a fun photo, some of my time with some of the friends I've been blessed to make in Tirana. I've met a lot of other like international people Two of my best friends are from Great Britain. They lived in Tirana about the same time I have, and we've learned Albanian together, going to language courses together. So this is just an afternoon spending out on their balcony, playing a fun challenge together. So it's been really great to have that opportunity to make new friendships there.
That's creative. That's great.
Yeah, it's they've been really good friends and have
Yeah.
been a support for me just being there with their friendship.
Yeah. And I love the shadow puppet because that is
Yes, that
like the
was
best way
it
for
was a
introverts to do a public
yeah.
performance. That's
We're like, okay, we're gonna try to make this as like the least painful for you guys as possible because it looks like it's gonna be painful for some of you.
that's
So,
awesome.
and it was very fun. It was very fun. It was a different thing to put on for the parents.
Yeah. Great.
So this is again just that Bible verse that I start with from First Thessalonians. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Um, And then I'm just going to close with sharing just a little bit about what my current situation is going into my third term in Albania, and then what I'm going to need to make it possible to stay for another 2 years. So currently, I have 7 monthly supporting parishes throughout the states, trying to keep them mostly in the Midwest just for convenience sake. That way, when you come back to visit them, it's a lot easier to visit all your churches as opposed to being all over the United States. But some of them are a bit spread out. And I have about 35 monthly supporting individuals or families. Some of these individuals and families are here at St. Raphael. So I thank everyone that has been supporting me over these past few years with your prayers, with your financial support, because I'm not out there doing this on my own. Neither are any missionaries. It is the people, it is the church that sends out the missionaries and makes their work possible. And even if you're not physically in Albania with me, you are still very much a part of what is going on there through your support. And hopefully, I am able to keep you in the loop with my newsletters, with regular communications, sending postcards and things like that. So looking into the third term with an increasing cost of living in Albania, and then also with the shifting dynamic there, we had a long-term missionary family, the Hoppies. Now Nathan Hoppy and his wife and his son have moved back to Florida. Nathan Hoppy is the new executive director of OCMC, which we are very happy to have him there in that function, still very much working with missions. But with them leaving Tirana, and they had been a real center of the church in Tirana in the sense that they offered their home living space for church functions. They would have
Mhm.
many groups come over, offering hospitality, offering places for people visiting Albania, maybe new missionaries. Myself, I lived there for 2 weeks with them before I got my first apartment. So that's just how they functioned, really giving of their time, of their resources. Their car was often what we used to take things back and forth to different places, for camps, for picnics, things like that. So with them leaving Tirana, I'm hoping that I can step into that role a little bit more, just really offering my space, offering my resources to the church communities. Um, and so with those things in mind, going into this third term, I will be needing a $1,800 increase monthly for the next 2 years. Um, so what I've been asking of and challenging my parishes here in the States has been thinking about whether God is allowing and making it possible now for um, the parish council, the church as a whole, to sponsor me at a level of $5 or a cup of coffee per family per month. So if you look at how many families you have in your church and kind of think of this $5 number is like buying a cup of coffee per family that you have, and offering that to my work, to the work in the church in Albania, as a whole. Um, if that is possible, if that is what God is equipping you to do at this time, with the other things that you already are doing in Iowa City, and your ministry here as one of the outposts of God's kingdom here, then I trust and believe that He will make that clear, and then He will provide for you in order to be able to do that. And if there are any individual families who would like to join my support team, I'd be very grateful to welcome you onto the team with me. And you can use this QR code here on the side. That will take you directly to my page on OCMC's website. And on that page, there are options to support on a monthly or one-time donation. And then there is a link to sign up for my newsletter, which I try to get out once a quarter, so four per year. And with that, I just want to thank you all again for your time, for your attention, and also just St. Raphael for again being my home parish. And I'm really glad to be here at least for one weekend this
Yeah,
weekend. I wish it could be more,
I
but
know.
we will continue traveling most weekends.
Well, welcome back.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
so if money is given through your page, it goes directly
Mhm.
to your mission. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is possible to donate to OCMC as a whole. And that if you donate to OCMC as a whole, that will go to specific projects. Sometimes it goes to um, like I'm not sure if the grants money is something separate, but it goes like to OCMC's work as a whole, missionary work where OCMC is present as a whole, and then a little bit taken out like for administrative needs and things like that. But when you donate specifically to a missionary on his or her page, that goes completely to the missionary.
Mm,
So there are other missionaries on OCMC's website as well. The McDonald's, who I mentioned, who are also in Albania with me. So you can go on the website and see where all OCMC missionaries are. I think we're in like 6 countries at the moment. And so you can read a little bit about the missionaries and then you can support them individually from using a link on their page.
okay. Well, I mean, the Acts of the Apostles, it is about the spread of the gospel from uh, Jerusalem and Judea to Samaria to the uttermost parts of the earth. And for us,
Mhm.
that's like Iowa City and Johnson County. And now this gives us a
Mhm.
chance to even be part of that uttermost parts of the earth.
Yeah.
There are places beyond Albania, but it's pretty far from Iowa.
Yes.
So it gives us
Yeah.
a great chance. And this has been a beautiful picture of all of this work you're doing, and I encourage anyone to give to that mission. And especially, I love the fact that we have a hometown missionary doing this work somewhere else. It's because it's really important for us to remember that the apostolic mission, and I'm always saying this about us being Antiochians, that the
Hmm.
ministry we do, even in here in Johnson County, it is just a continuation of Paul leaving from Antioch, Paul and
Right.
Barnabas leaving from Antioch. And it keeps going on. And when I became Orthodox, I mean, I'm probably not the only one who grew up during the Cold War, and in my case, in a military family, and realized that the Russians were sending missionaries to the United States during
Hmm.
all of this time.
Hmm.
And we're still
Hmm.
sending missionaries. And OCMC, I think a lot of people don't realize OCMC works closely with the churches in particular places. They have the blessing of bishops to be there in those places and don't just send money there, but labor
Right.
there alongside the church. And that many of these places that are historically um, Orthodox or have an Orthodox presence, that many of those Orthodox communities um, some of the people are kind of culturally Orthodox, perhaps, but Europe, and we've certainly seen this in the United States. Europe has been affected by this sort of European secular humanism, in which people's worldview is essentially secular, and even Europe at one time, having received the gospel, kind of fell into Arianism, had to be re-evangelized. So a lot of our uh, work in other countries. In Greece, you have like even people trying going back to paganism, right? And certainly
Hmm.
into secularism. So sometimes it's going to new places, but often it is going to old places with a gospel that is being proclaimed to fresh ears because they really don't understand Orthodoxy, right? It's kind of a cultural thing for them, but there's not a lot of depth there. So we want to support missions as much as we can throughout the world. So I have a lot of questions, but I what I want people to do is watch this video and formulate their questions because you'll be with us on Sunday morning and during coffee hour to talk to you and ask their questions to
Wonderful. Yeah.
and again I ask for generosity for everyone who's giving.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father.